Opens make you feel good, boosts the ego. Sounds really good when you say it out loud. 40% of people open my email. But there is just too many reasons why they're not accurate, they're not reliable, and I hate them. So I ban them from all my clients reporting.
Welcome to Email After Hours by Senderscore, powered by Validity.
We're your hosts. My name is Guy Hansen.
And I'm Danielle Gallant, and this is Email After Hours. On today's episode, we're going to ruffle some feathers, maybe, in the email marketing world. So the industry, as most marketers know, is obsessed with best practices. But what if much of that wisdom is outdated or is just downright wrong? Doesn't fit today? And what if in reality, some of these practices are doing more harm than good?
So joining us today, we've got Beth O'Malley, self-described queen of email and an unapologetic contrarian when it comes to challenging those established email wisdoms. She's been in the trenches long enough to know that what gets preached as email best practice isn't always the gospel truth, and she's here today to explain why. So we're going to flip the script. We're going to challenge conventions. Welcome, Beth. We're so excited to have you with us on the show today.
Hi, thank you for having me. I feel I'm ready to ruffle feathers. I can't wait. Super excited. I'm feeling very geared up. I'm very prepped.
Well, we're going to start off with a bang. So given that we're going to give those best practices a good pot stir today, let's start as we mean to go on. So maybe we'll come back to it and get into it in more detail. But just to kick us off with an icebreaker, what is one, or maybe the one, best practice that you'd happily toss into a volcano? And why does it deserve such an end?
I would toss into the volcano double opt-in, which I'll probably get lots of people coming for me on that. But yeah, it's gone. It's going in there. But we can dig into that as we go on, maybe. But yeah, it's gone. I don't use it. No one should use it. But there we go.
Yeah, all I can say is start as you mean to continue, Beth. This is going to be a good conversation. So let's rewind a bit just to set the scene for our audience, because once upon a time, you used to champion best practices. Was there some kind of aha moment where it caused you to step back and say, hey, wait a second, maybe the playbook doesn't have all the right answers?
Yeah, definitely. It was since I went self-employed. So I managed lots of email functions in my time, in my employment that I loved. And I was that good email marketer. I followed every single best practice. I was at every webinar. I was like, yeah, followed everything to the T. And when I went self-employed and I started working with businesses, and I started connecting with other people in the industry as well, that actually really challenged me and was like, why are you doing that like that? Or have you thought about it that way? And I just went down this rabbit hole of like, yeah, why hasn't the research and knowledge changed over the span of 15 years? It's still what we're saying 15 years ago today. And there's not another marketing channel out there whereby that is one, okay, or two, it has the same narrative and copy and paste information. So that was it. I was like, I'm going to make it my mission to change. And I call it like reimagining email, because actually email as a channel hasn't changed, because it's email, it's someone's inbox. But I think everyone approaches it in I find it a really strange way. So yeah, I've just run with it. That's it. Best practice out the window. So yeah, but I found much better results with everybody I work with. So why not?
And that's almost a life learning, isn't it? Not just an email learning. I mean, you look at things through a different lens when it's your own money that's at stake, right?
Absolutely. I found as well, like my role is to challenge people's approaches and strategies and find the opportunities they didn't know existed. So for me, it was how can we get the best results without doing what everybody else is doing? And actually, like the best question I could give to anyone, best piece of advice is just like ask why, because often when you ask why have you built a welcome flow? Because that's what I'm supposed to do. That's what it said on Google. That's what someone said on LinkedIn. And I'm like, okay, that is not good. We can't ever start there. So yeah, I think asking why is really important.
I love that. I feel like I'm picturing myself now in my client calls, Beth with a little tiny you on my shoulder being like, why? Why?
Oh, do it. It's so fun. Honestly, I mean, it can get a little bit heated, especially when I'm like, why? And they're like, because that's what you're meant to do. And I'm like, no, no, you decide what you're meant to do for your audience. And I'm not saying, by the way, like totally rip out everything and throw it in the bin and, be really stupid and careless. But I think best practice as a definition is supposed to wield the best results. And I have not seen that. So I think best practice has become a little bit
Well,
diluted.
let's start with one metric at least that you and I can definitely agree on in terms of like, okay, maybe we're a little bit skeptical of this together. Let's talk about open rates. My understanding is that you have long been skeptical of this metric.
Mm.
Tell us why you think it doesn't
Yeah,
live up.
this start this actually started when I was employed, actually, because I remember sitting in a meeting. I was only actually, this is going back to when I was apprentice. This is when I first started, and I was that person in the meeting that was like, we were reporting on everything, and it was like, Beth's done these emails, and they were like, they've got 40% open. I was like, no, like I was like, that can't mean that everybody opened and read it. Like that can't mean that. So I've been fixated on it from that day. But yeah, open rates, I think they are there because we don't have any other metrics to report on, right, in our email platform. So opens make you feel good, boost the ego. Sounds really good when you say it out loud. 40% of people open my email. But there is just too many reasons why they're not accurate, they're not reliable, and I hate them. So I ban them from all my clients' reporting. I'm yet to be successful on all of them. Ban it from my reporting. We do not look at open rates at Astro.
It's a nice take too, a little bit different, right? Because when I'm thinking about open rates and why I don't really give them as much mind as a lot of marketers do, it's mostly because I know how directional they are. Like, what do they tell us in terms of maybe inbox placement? We've talked about that on the podcast. But I also like the idea that let's pretend all opens are real. We can track every single one. Just because somebody opened your email doesn't mean that they actually read it, spent any time with it, engaged with it. So I love this as well. And then I guess as a follow-on to that, which alternative metrics do you think give a more accurate picture of how well an email actually performed?
I think just touching back on like opens as themselves, like I'm not saying like, I mean, you can totally bin them, but I always say like pair them with at least two other metrics because you're totally right. Like there's a habit that a lot of humans have, which is open to delete. And like when I say this, some people are like, yeah, I do that. And I do it on my work computer all the time. I'm like, open, delete, open, delete, open, delete. And then I'm like, oops, I've set off the tracking pixel for your marketing email. But yeah, so in terms of what to track instead, because and I also think as well, you don't have to open an email for it to be a success. Even if you see an email in your inbox, it might prompt you to go, oh, I'll write that on my to-do list. I've got to order more of that, or we've got to sort that out in the business. So I think opens as well, as much as you might think a 40%, is great. What about all the other people that you prompted to do something? So I always say metrics that are really, really great to track is destination tracking. So where is it that you're trying to get people to go and actually looking at it a bit more holistically? So was there an increase in search after you sent that email within a specific time period? How many hits onto the website? Actually, how many inbound phone calls have you had in? Another metric that I really love is time to first meaningful action. So after somebody signed up for your email, how long does it take them to then take that next meaningful action? So you'll find often people open loads of your emails and there's not one meaningful action in there, but actually a meaningful action could be a webinar sign up, a purchase, an inquiry, whatever that looks like. And that for me is the most important metric because I don't care how many times you've opened or not opened my email. I want to get that time down to most meaningful action. So that's what I really like to get into with my emails.
I love that. And while you're talking, I was just thinking, if you're getting 40% open rate, you might even be a bit worried because these days that might even mean that not even all the bots are opening your emails. So,
it's really interesting because I have I use HubSpot. So HubSpot's supposed to like filter out all the bots. And I never trust an email platform 100%. But I set up a bit of a pattern interrupt email for my newsletter subscribers, which if HubSpot told me you hadn't opened an email for 120 days, I send one every single week. You kind of get this one where I'm like, apparently you're not doing it. And a piece of research I did, 20% of those people replied and said, no, Beth, I open every single one. What are you going on about? And I'm like, it just proves my point. Like, you cannot trust it 100%. They're like, yeah, I use Outlook or I use Google and I always open it. And I'm like, well, there we go then. Just stop tracking opens.
Let's move the conversation on and talk a bit about trends. We've just done our annual predictions webinar. I know you wrote a great piece on trends, and I'd encourage our listeners to have a read. But I guess the point is it's easy to be trendy. Maybe it's like a bit harder not to just jump on the latest trends. So why do you think so many marketers actually just follow the herd, especially when those trends sometimes actually end up becoming more harmful than helpful?
I think it's human instinct, right? To follow. You don't want to ever be the person that's like, well, you don't want, I think as well on this, you see something in your inbox and you think, well, it must work if these big brands are doing it. Like if these big businesses are doing it. And I think it's just like it's in our psychology, right? To be like, we want to be like that, or we can't kind of feel like we're not trying that out. But I also think there's external pressure and internal pressure from not just the competitors, but also the leaders. I can tell you now, I guarantee a lot of the bad ideas that you see in the inbox are not the marketers. It was not their idea. Like it's someone else that's seen it. And it's that shiny object syndrome of leaders being like, I saw this on LinkedIn. And someone said it was such a good email, so let's do it. And I fundamentally don't believe that there can be trends in email marketing. Like I think when you look at social and trends and the social algorithm and how people behave when they're on social media versus their inbox is a task environment. It's a very personal environment. You're either in work mode or you're in personal mode, but you're not browsing your inbox for like something that's going to give you a dopamine hit. So when you do a trend, the brain codes that, remembers it, and then when another brand turns up and does the same thing, you already know it's not going to work on you. So you cannot trick your audience on there because it's just not going to work. So I really think trends in email, I just think you've got to tread really carefully with what you're doing.
So how do marketers break out of that cycle, Beth? I mean, is it sort of taking a leaf out of what you just been said and perhaps, focusing on the humanity a little bit more?
Yeah, I think it's really hard. It's really, really hard because I speak to hundreds of marketers a month, and they all tell me the same thing. We've got pressure from our bosses, from our stakeholders. I can't get out of that. I also see all this, it's information overload out there. So I feel like I'm probably one of a small pot of unique voices and the mass is saying one thing. So like, why would somebody take my word over, the likes of really big businesses that are out there saying it? And I completely get that. And I realize I don't know everything at all, but I think it's really instilling in marketers to question, be curious. And like, that's what marketers are. There is no logic in marketing. What works for one person might not work for someone else. And sometimes following, the frameworks and the rules, and it's not going to get you your results that you want. So I think don't be afraid to test some stuff out. Don't be afraid if you feel it in your gut being like, you know what, I'm not going to listen to that. I hear it's out there, but we're going to try this and we're going to do that. And that's the best that a marketer can be, is to listen to your gut. I mean, in life anyway, just like listen to your gut. Because lots of people say, oh, I did think that. I did. Oh yeah. Like, I'm really glad you said that because that's validated that for me. Like hundreds of people. And I'm like, well, if one person's thinking it, more people are thinking it. So it's hard though. It is hard to break off that wheel of how do we stop being like a churner of email and copying what everyone else is doing. But just being curious, I think, is a good place to start.
And trends become norms, right? So then it just becomes kind of all the same noise. And that's why we see with emails that buck those a little bit. Even think of like an oops email when there's we know that those messages get like way high engagement, way high visibility. It's something that kind of interrupts the pattern. So I really love that. I do want to kind of go back to something that you were talking about before. You've said, especially with like the non-traditional metrics, looking at kind of the broader picture, the broader impact that email marketing can have. This is where you're a believer, right? So like time to meaningful action or whatever. And it's not just about that immediate ROI. And you've said before, you've spoken about something called the Billboard Effect. I'm intrigued. Can you unpack what that means for email marketers?
Oh, 100%. I think first of all, you've hit the nail on the head. Like, email is not a performance channel for everyone. And it was never meant to be that. So I think everybody listening to this, just remember that. Like, when you are getting reported on what happens on one email's not a performance channel. And that's where the Billboard kind of effect comes in. So there's been some really interesting studies on looking at return on impact rather than return on investment. So as I mentioned before, someone might not open your email per se. They might not open all of your emails, but when we're in the inbox, whether you're in a work mode or you're just, it's habit, we all check our inboxes, our personal inboxes, and we're in there to check. We're in there to make sure we've not missed anything, or actively in there to search for something that we need. Now, when you're doing that, your brain is registering absolutely everything and you don't even realize it's happening. So it's called predictive coding. You are seeing stuff, it's registering, you're seeing brand names, you're seeing products, you're seeing everything. Same in your work inbox. And essentially that becomes kind of the billboards. You don't really pay any attention to billboards, but you'd be interested to know that actually your brain retains a lot of that information when you see it. Like you might not even think that I don't remember every billboard. Yeah, of course you're not. But if you see that brand again, that's exactly why people put them on billboards. Because I'm never going to put my brand on a billboard, but that's why brands invest heavily in passive recognition. That's kind of what it's called. So the inbox has a bit of a billboard mentality. I've done a blog on an email as an awareness channel, because before you know it, you are registering that brand, that name in your inbox. And although you might not open and click, email has been proved to assist conversions, growth, pipeline growth, website visits without opens and clicks. So I challenge anyone right now, go into their CRM or their email platform and pull a list of anyone that hasn't opened or clicked an email, but they've been on the site, they took a meaningful action and they've bought. And I guarantee out of your email disengaged pot, there'll be a chunk of people that you're like, oh, we probably should be talking to them, but we cut them off because they don't engage with email. So that's really important. The billboard effect in email it's doing a lot more work for you than you think. So it's about continuing to show up, but with good emails as well, not with rubbish ones, because we train our
good
brain
emails
to expect,
still
like the last chance emails that you get when you're like, this is the 5th time this week. It's not my last chance.
Definitely not.
I can
It's gonna be
definitely,
my chance again
the
next
sale
week.
is still on.
And I think that it's all well and good. Like, you're right. I think absolutely you're right. And I was thinking while you were giving that answer about how many emails I get from a brand, any given brand, where I've never maybe made a purchase through email. But if I need something later, I would go to that website first, probably because I see them show up and they haven't completely spammed me or whatever. But I think the immediate problem is that because we're people and we love to measure and attribute things quickly and immediately to figure out how they're working. I mean, you've referenced a couple of go check website visits, but how should marketers measure the billboard effect, or reframe success with that in mind?
It is really hard. It's not an easy feat. And there's obviously, depending on the business and the systems that you have, there's always trade-offs with reporting. So, we're not all going to get rid of opens overnight. But essentially what you're kind of looking for, I think, is getting out the habit as well of checking an email by email. I think also you're restricting yourself, because what you'll often find, and something I just literally posted on LinkedIn today, was about search inbox optimization. This is huge. With AI and Gemini coming in, people search their inboxes and they are searching for people and things that they've seen. And so if you go back and look at your stats, your email stats that you logged from last year now, they will have gone up. People go back and your stats go up. So when you report on an email after 24 hours a week, you're doing yourself a disjustice. So get out of the kind of one email, one report. We'll look at that email as that, because email is essentially there to work together to get to a long-term goal. So it's an amalgamation. So I always like to report quarterly. For all my clients, everyone I work with, we report quarterly on it, and we set kind of goals. So by the end of that quarter, we're expecting pipeline growth by X. We're expecting website visits to increase by X, webinars to increase by X. Now, it's really hard if you've got multiple channels running. So you've got paid and SEO. But what we look at is, okay, if there has been emails sent in that time period and we have X amount of meaningful actions, or we know the time between the first email, for example, at the start of the month, and the last email, and they did X, Y, and Z, we can say that email helped assist that, because that's essentially what it does. So you do have to trust in your data. Now, look, not everybody has this amount of data or a good system to do this, but you essentially have to get a graph and make sure everything is going up. So our email sends are going up, pipeline. And I did a similar graph for mine. I started my newsletter last April. And, nothing really happened for, 4 or 5 months. I'm B2B, but ultimately I report on that quarterly. Pipelines up, conversations, I track conversations are up, masterclass sellouts are up, tickets. So you know what I mean? So it's just about seeing that graph and growing it. Now, if that's gone down or it stayed stagnant, then that's an indicator that email isn't working as hard as it should be. But it's incredibly hard. But I did do a blog where there's like 20 metrics I track around email, which is really important, including inbox placement rate, because, you know, if you're not landing in the inbox, not much point.
Absolutely. And we'll come to that. We'll come to that in a moment. But before we do, I want to sort of move on to a probably closely related topic. As you'll know, there is a regular debate about how to handle inactive subscribers. And there's one school of thought that says, don't send to your inactive subscribers. It's going to hurt your deliverability and it's bad for your performance. And then at the other end of that debate, you know, there's a theory of actually maybe we should be sending a bit more email, you know, cast a wider net. And I think this probably overlaps with everything you were just saying about the importance of the Billboard effect. So what's your position on this particular fence, Beth?
I think there's a way to do it, right? So I would never, you know, if I'm running an audit at the minute for a client and they've got a pot of 70,000 people that they're like, we want to reach out to them. They've got poor deliverability. So is that a good idea? Absolutely not. That is the last thing we want to do. Another consideration here is that those people are often, take out the people purchasing, by the way, and actually interacting with your brand. But say these people are very cold, like, you know, they haven't interacted with the site, your products, your emails, nothing for, you know, 2 years. Are they your warmest audience? No. Is the payoff going to be great? No, it'll always be minimal. So you have to remember, if you've nailed everything else and you've got nothing else to do and you're twiddling your thumbs, yeah, go for it. Protect deliverability, approach it in a good way, try a control segment, and off you go and try different tests and then kind of launch. But I think I always say to people, like, when it comes to that disengaged pot and you haven't kind of nailed your deliverability and you've got no idea what's going on, you've got warm people coming in all the time, but you're not really doing anything with them, I would not touch your disengaged people. That's not the audience that you are going to get the mass return from. You're actually probably better putting budget and money and resource into that warmer audience that you've already got, because it's hard work. It is really hard work trying to win someone back, right? We all know that. Like, it's such hard work. But you are right that it is the Billboard effect. So if your deliverability is good, your email strategy is great, and you know how to re-engage disengaged, absolutely use email as awareness channel. But I do think there is a line that I would draw. Like, there is a brand that I haven't spoke to or done anything with for about 7 years, and they still go at me. And, you know, I mean, I spoke to the CEO of that company and he said, well, you should just unsubscribe. And I'm like, no, humans are too lazy to unsubscribe. Like, stop emailing me. But there we go.
I've recently started a kindness of unsubscribing from brands where I'm just like, it's the new year. I'm going to be nice and I'm just going to unsubscribe.
You are lovely.
I'm really going to do this.
That's good. It's better than a spam report, right? No, I always think that. I'm like, but if brands cross the line, they do sometimes get a spam
consultants,
report.
we know, like, it takes a lot, I think, for me to mark you as spam, like, definitely. So anyway, the charitable unsubscribe is happening, at least for me, that you guys now know about. So speaking of deliverability and versus delivery, I want to kind of move to talking about ESPs a little bit. You've spoken about ESPs, email service providers, and their role in pushing, like, vanity metrics, opens certainly being one of them. And I guess the question is, because when you think about it, ESPs have not really changed what they're reporting on. Are ESPs setting marketers up for failure?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Like, you're so right. Like, yes, they are. It's really sad because I really want to love all these systems. And I always say to everyone, they are product experts. They are great at product and product delivery and features and stuff like that. They're going to do anything to make you feel good. So, you know, if you use HubSpot, the green arrows that go up and then the red ones that go down. But ultimately, then we get stuck in this like punishment cycle. So I think there's absolutely that. And HubSpot have just released a delivery dashboard, which is ultimately going to cause panic. Like it is, and Klaviyo has its deliverability hub, and we have all these things whereby the general marketer that doesn't literally spend their life studying this stuff, like, or, living and breathing, somebody that's got a million things on their plate, are they going to take that at face value? Yes. Is it going to set them up for failure? Yes, because you cannot track deliverability in your email service provider. And I feel like I say this 50 times a day. I feel like I shout it, but yeah, these platforms are giving the impression that you can by saying, here's your deliverability dashboard. And I'm like, so how can you tell these people if they're landing in spam or not? And a really classic example is I had a client. They said, Beth, Klaviyo said our deliverability score is at 12. It was like red, everything. They'd like put on this plan. And it was like, you can't email anyone apart from these people. They were like panicking. It was like a call at like 8 p.m. So I said, first of all, calm down, because they said that is what they are telling you. They have no knowledge of where you're landing. We did a deliverability audit. We looked at their inbox placement rates over 30 days. They were fine. They were 20% in spam on average, which is okay. Like it's okay. It's good. And actually they couldn't send to their audience within that time. Like they were constantly forced by the product. Are you sure this is bad? Are you sure? So they were constantly guessing themselves. So I'm trying to start a movement really to like boycott the platforms.
Well, that's a good question. If you had a magic wand and you could wave it, what would you change about how ESPs do email reporting?
They would hire me in and we would change it all. No, we would. I think they would work with a diverse specialist. So I kind of got into the skin of a few. I've got a couple of contacts, and it's really interesting how they do product development. And that's the thing, they will listen to their users. So the users want something easier, but the users actually, the marketers, these marketers, there's nothing wrong with them. They're not stupid, but they don't have that expert knowledge. Like they don't know any different because we've never been taught that. So they should consult with a diverse range of experts who work with these marketers day in, day out to then deliver the tools that have the right metrics and the right training and the right information. But yeah, they're all guilty because they all copy each other. Like literally you see a blog on Klaviyo, HubSpot posted about it 10 minutes ago. They're like this is yeah. So yeah, that's what I would, if I could wave my magic wand, that's what I would do.
Oh wow, I just feel like we definitely drink the same Kool-Aid here. So we've talked a bit about how email marketers love to follow the best practices laid out by the industry experts, but I think what's clear from our conversation with you, Beth, is that you're all about real world testing. So can you talk us through how you've actually used testing to challenge some of those conventional wisdoms, and what have you learned from it?
100%. Well, first of all, when we talk about testing with me, I definitely don't do subject line testing. That is another that can get in the bin as well. So I think testing is about trying to find out, either validate results or validate your gut feeling, essentially. So a really good test that I've done, and you have to have buy-in for this. So not everybody I work with allows me to do this, but there is a test that I do, which is to basically prove us right. Like me and the marketing team is like, we need to be proved right. So we have a control segment. This segment is made up, it's very, very small, but it's made up of a bit of a mixture of everyone really. So like a customer, whatever your kind of core segments are, it's got a handful of those in that pot. And we basically want to prove over the space of 1 to 2 years that if we don't send emails to those people, that it has a knock-on effect, and it has, less assisted revenue, less assisted leads, less assisted website visits, and whatever. Now, obviously, when you do a test like that, when you say, well, we're actually going to cut out some of your audience and not email them, everyone's like, no, absolutely can't do that. We're like, oh my gosh, it's like I've said the worst thing in the world. The leaders that I work with and the teams that I work with are very willing. They're at a point anyway where they'll kind of try anything. Now, what we found in all of those tests, bear in mind, I have now ran 170 of these, 170 businesses. So what we found in all of those tests is, yes, it had a knock-on impact. That control segment, and bearing in mind, we have to be really careful who we pick and we put in there, and we've got to put guardrails in. They all had less impact. So impact would define in certain businesses as revenue, leads, visits to the website. We kind of come up with those metrics and what we're measuring than the people not in the control segment. We proved that even if they didn't open, even if they didn't click, that it would affect them. We also proved that actually with our new email strategy, this was the right way to go. So I think as well, that's another thing to touch on. I would never really do a test with like send to everyone versus be super targeted, because it just really, really depends. But that was something to prove there that actually really email attribution is messy. You can't really track email. So that test is really interesting, because then leaders go, oh, okay, I see what you mean now. So, okay, well, maybe now we're going to track it like this. So that's a really good test to do for that. Other tests that you can do is on different control segments is content alignment. So again, like, I don't think really, it's hard to test frequency. It's hard to test subject lines, because you have to try and make the conditions the same every time. And you can't do that in email. You can't send the same email again to the person next Tuesday at the same time and be like, just want to make sure you definitely opened it last week and that was a good subject line. So again, you can test different content alignment with your different segments and where they are in their journey. So you could try being a bit more hyper targeted to a certain group, so control segment about one particular issue that you know that they're having, and see the results from that, versus being a bit more broad, because some people are like, we just send it to everyone, or a bit more just in case it's relevant. And sometimes you'd be surprised, the one that's sending to a bit more, being a bit more generic messaging, might actually work better than the hyper targeted. But it's just all about trying it. Like, and again, one test is not enough. Like, you have to continually repeat this, because I think that's the problem as well. Like, your subject line will win, and then I'm like, what are you going to do with that? Are you going to use it next week again for everyone? And they're like, no, it's a really good ego boost, because I thought that one was going to win. So yeah, it's really important, but it's also take it with a bucket of salt, because, and conditions change daily, and you'll often do run the same test and it'll be the opposite, and you'll be like, right, okay, what's that tell us? So it is really difficult to test an email.
Some really great ideas there, and I'd encourage our listeners to try them all out. But that last comment of yours, Beth, I thought that one was going to win. If you're anything like me, even when you try to keep it objective, you've still probably got like a sneaking idea in your mind about which outcome's going to win and which one isn't. But have you ever had a test result which even for you was completely unexpected?
Oh yes, like sometimes I have these great ideas and then they do not work. Of course, like literally and the things I say this stuff, like I still get caught up in like, oh, I've had an open rate that's really high. Like, of course we do. Like it feeds us inside.
Feels good,
so yeah,
doesn't it? Sometimes it just feels good.
Of course, we're human. I'm human. Like when I see this open rate, I'm like, oh, but anyway, no, I think with stuff that's kind of gone wrong is, sometimes I'm really adamant, like, actually, I do believe this is the direction we need to take with this messaging, and it doesn't get the results. But again, it's like, I'm kind of tried to take myself out of like, when I say get the results, we're often looking at what happens straight after that email. And that's really dangerous, again, because we know people search the inbox, they come back, and there's all these other things. So for me, yeah, like I think I like getting proved wrong. I do. I really do. So whenever I'm like to a client, we'll try that. Like I had one the other day. It was a welcome flow. She wanted congratulations in the subject line. And I was like, no, we're not congratulating people. She was like, let's test it. She won. So I was like, okay.
Everybody loves a congratulations. I guess. Whether it makes any sense or not, here we go. Before we really start to wrap up here, I always love, and I think Guy loves too, to talk about a mistake, a fail of our own. Guy and I have certainly shared enough of them on this podcast. So, Beth, do you have any cringeworthy email fails from your own past that maybe taught you a valuable lesson, maybe shifted your approach? You got any tea for us?
Yeah, all the time. Like yeah, there's one that's sticking out. I mean, it depends how long you've got, but there's hundreds of mistakes. The one that really gets to me is when I was employed. I have a habit of like not testing my emails. If it's a client email, always. If it's mine, I'm just kind of like, yeah, whatever. And I basically sent an email out to, it was like a big release to a massive data set. So it was about 500,000 people. And I was meant to schedule it for next week. And I sent it out to 500,000 people. And then I'm not joking. I mean, this proves how good the email was, because everybody was calling in, emailing in, and the company went into like continuity, like there was an emergency like plan. People had to work the weekend because of me, and yeah, basically it was really, really, really bad. However, we decided to flip it into like a pre-sale. So we built this massive list. I think there was about 20,000 customers that we got right before the launch date. So in a sense, I feel like it worked. But yeah, that I have to say,
Yeah, your customers genuinely had early access to the sale.
literally. So it was one of those times where I thought I'm definitely getting fired. There was crying in the toilet, lots of tears and anxiety, but ultimately, now I have a very shaky hand when I press send or schedule. So it's just, don't do that. But guess what? The world didn't end. No one died. So I very much am that sort of person now. I'm like, if it's not life or death, if you send out an email to the wrong people, and I promise you it's not as bad, like not everybody noticed it. So yeah.
Well, welcome to the club, the email club.
Been there, done that. We still got to commission the t-shirt, but we should.
Yeah.
Okay, Beth, finishing up on a happier note. If you could give one simple piece of email marketing advice that would make a huge difference for most email marketers, what would it be?
Best thing you can do, instead of segmenting who you want to send it to, just make a list of who you don't. The best advice ever. Just exclusions. I don't believe in pulling together a list of everybody. I think start with who it's relevant for and then take out all the people where there could be a collision in messaging. It could be a bad experience. It feels a little bit risky. And that is how I do my emails, and it will transform your approach, make life a little bit easier, because if you say who you want to include, you include as many people as possible. Wrong sort of mindset. Take out all those people and you'll end up with a much more targeted pop. So that's my piece of
What
advice.
do you think, Danielle? Best answer ever?
Best answer ever. It does make everything so much easier. Why was that so beyond my reach?
I know, it's like I have to remove my mom and my partner out those emails because they boost my open rates. Wow. I'm only joking.
Beth, thank you so much. This has been awesome. Thank you for sharing your insights, your expertise, and everything email marketing guru with us today. For listeners that are interested in connecting with you or learning more about your work, what's the best way that they can reach out to you?
Just Google Beth O'Malley, and then there I am. Pop straight up, and then you can find my blog as well on there with literally everything we spoke about in lots more depth, and my newsletter, of course. So yeah, Google my name. You should find everything you need on there, and stay in touch. Very exciting.
And for all of our listeners, please be sure to tune in next time and hit subscribe so that you don't miss any future episodes. And of course, don't forget to visit senderscore.org for more resources to help you become a stronger sender.
Definitely. And just to make the point, Danielle and I love our guests like Beth, who join us on Email After Hours. We're always looking out for new guests to feature on future episodes too. So if you'd like to join us on an upcoming episode, drop a comment, ping us on LinkedIn, fill out the guest form, linked in the show notes. And if you want to send in your email marketing hot takes, your questions, your queries, email us at emailafterhours@validity.com. or head to the link in the show notes to send us an audio message to. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you all again in 2 weeks' time. Bye for now.
Bye.
Be sure to tune in next time and hit subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. And don't forget to visit senderscore.com for loads more great resources to help you become a stronger sender.
To all you sleepless senders out there, thank you for joining us after hours, and see you next time.